one thing that I think we should bring up, it's kind of a funny thing that we talk about where it's like, imagine let's say you're around Jesus' time or a few hundred years before, and you're a 10-year-old girl. Over the next 3 years, you're gonna go through some changes. Well, first off, you might hit puberty at 12, 13. Then your father is going to create a business deal and find a 24-year-old man who's a part of a good family, and they're going to create a deal for you to, well, have kids with that guy. And you're not going to know him. You're going to meet him maybe a week before, maybe a month, maybe a day. I don't even know. But it's not going to be very long. You're not going to... Dating is not a thing. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as dating. And now you're going to be, well, banged by this guy that you don't know. And it's going to be totally moral. And the culture accepts it completely. Even if you don't even know each other, you don't have strong communication skills, you don't have compatibility when it comes to growth mindset or emotional stability or anything. None of those factors are considered whatsoever. But since you are married, it's all good. And like, that's just something that today it just never happens. You know, you make a point of like, apartments didn't exist 70, 80 years ago.
You weren't living outside of your parents.
We had enough wealth to, I get to live on my own with all these college kids in apartments. It's like, no, you lived with your parents and then you got married and then you maybe still lived with your parents, or you maybe lived at a different place. But like, there was never a period of like, I'm living on my own, I'm single for a while, I'm dating, I've been dating for 2 years. Those things just didn't occur as much. People got married at like in high school a lot, like our grandparents' age. Like, it's like things are changing, and I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing, but it just needs to be taken into consideration that it's not the exact same context as when the Bible was written or when our parents were alive, or etc.
Yeah, I mean, the calculus is radically different today than it was even just 100 years ago, not to mention 500 years ago. I mean, your average 13-year-old, the second that chick was able to bear kids, I mean, they were being dealed away. I mean, the father of that household is going to meet with the father of the guy down the street, and they're going to say, all right, I think I need 10 cows and, 3 sheep, and, we can strike a deal here. And, yeah, your son, he's 23, but she's 13, no big deal. Yeah, let's have a wedding next week. They'll meet each other, and then, the guy will go rape her, and she'll have no choice in this matter, and she'll bear his children, and we'll all live until 35 because that's when we die. Yep. So it's just, that's part of the problem here is we have these long-term conventional moral structures, these long-term moral rules, let's say, and yet they're not being updated properly, or at least we're not having the discussion properly around how they're updated in society today, because the wrong perspective is to assume that they have no weight and that we can simply jettison them out and completely ignore marriage, completely ignore that sex, may be something that we don't want to treat as a, physical transaction. It might be something a little bit more deep than that. And it's this updating problem. It's this trying to figure out, how do we incorporate past knowledge with this radically transformative time? Dating didn't exist. It was not a thing. Getting married at 25, 30, having kids at 30, it didn't exist. It wasn't a thing. So
you didn't even live that long, most likely.
Yeah. There's a good chance you wouldn't have. I think the average age, around 35 to 40, I think, was average life expectancy, and today it's around 80, I believe. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's radically different.
Yeah.
But these things need to be updated, I guess, is part of the point here, is not to try to say, oh, we have the answer. Because I don't think we do. I think we can.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think we can look at data and see trends, see potential correlations and causations, and use conventional wisdom and logic to kind of sort through it. But we live in a time that's so radically different than the past that if we don't update the way that we think about moral rules and societal norms, we're going to continue to run into problems like a lack of fathers in homes, which is a serious problem.